Well, hello, everyone, and welcome back to another exciting episode of the Full-Time Hustler Podcast. I'm your host, Jason Feemster, and today we have a very special guest with us. Joining us is Joel Zamboni, the founder and CEO of Webera, a company that specializes in offering DevOps-as-a-Service. Joel hails from the beautiful city of, and I'm going to have to get him to say this, Farroupilha, somewhere in Brazil. Could you tell us that, say that name?
Hey. Hey, Jason, thank you for the introduction. Yeah, from Farroupilha. It's a city in the south of Brazil. It's named after a revolution. My state, Rio Grande do Sul, was one of the few states in Brazil that was independent for a while. Kind of another
Actually, I
country
didn't
for
see
a
that
while.
coming. That was you just threw me a curveball. I didn't see that. Wow, that's a good story.
Yeah.
So what I have here on Webera, and I'm glad that you took the time to join me this morning, and what I'd like the audience to hear is Webera is not just another tech company. It's a game changer in the DevOps space, and we're going to dive deep into what makes it tick. But that's not all. We'll also get to know Joel on a personal level, explore his journey, and maybe even uncover some unconventional facts that you won't hear anywhere else. So without further ado, let's get right into it. And Joel, thank you for saying the name and giving that good story. And welcome to the Full-Time Hustler Podcast.
Thank you for inviting me. That's awesome. Yeah, so I appreciate your invitation. Let's do it, man. I'm here to help your audience, and I hope they learned something today. And they can contact me on Twitter or X now or whatever place they want if they want to talk to me. LinkedIn is most of my time. Yeah.
I love it. I love it. Well, first, let's start with something a little unconventional, and then we'll get right into Webera and getting all things Joel, good, bad, and ugly. But let's start with, just to break the ice, a little quick fire icebreaker questions. These are quick, fast, just shoot back. So, Joel, coffee or tea?
My team?
No, coffee or tea?
I didn't get.
Between coffee or tea, which one do you prefer?
Oh, between coffee or tea. Sorry. Yeah. I still finishing my coffee. That's why. I was a little slow with coffee.
I guess that answers the question, and I'm drinking tea.
Yeah.
So early bird or night owl?
Night owl, definitely.
I like that answer. If you were a superhero, what would your superpower be?
My superpower. Yeah, that is I would say I don't know, be around forever.
There you go. Oh, immortality. Whoa, went deep. Yeah. If you could be any animal, what would that be?
I think a whale, probably.
Oh, wow. What's your most used app on your phone?
I guess it's Gmail.
That's probably all of us. And what's the last book you've read?
It's what's the name of the book? It's Traction. It's a book from the guy that had that alternative search engine. It's a very good book. Traction.
Well, I appreciate you for answering the quick fire, and now as we transition to the more of the heart of professional life and Webera and your story to present, I do want to give a little background to the audience of how we got here, and it's the odd juxtaposition that I met Joel through the app Lunch Club. We had one meeting. We had it was an insightful conversation, and we decided to link up afterwards. Now, the peanut butter and jelly that I'm normally used to, I want to give into the character that Joel is. Joel takes to this 5-star that audience, I cannot tell you to this day, you won't taste anything this good. And that my redneck self has never been to a fully authentic Brazilian restaurant. So I was like, well, since I'm with a Brazilian, why not let him go and lead? And people do it one time in your life. This is the kind of that just gives to the testament that who I'm speaking with and the caliber, and you can get the sense, and I hope that we get the sense through this podcast. Joel's the type that he will take the shirt off his back and just meet a stranger and take them out to the best Brazilian restaurant in the area. Uh, that's the person we're talking to, the person that is a friend to a friend. Now that we're getting into the who Joel is, let's get into the professional life in Webera. Joel, can you tell us about the journey that led you to found Webera?
Yeah. So when I moved to US, I moved here to a company called NII Holdings, which is the Nextel, international Nextel, for the ones who remember those Nextel radios with the rip thing, sound of thing. And in there, I was called here because I was the data center manager for the biggest market in Brazil, and we were trying to do consolidation projects. At the beginning, I started working with these projects here, and I saw the opportunity to move some things to the cloud. The cloud was the beginning, or mid, like 2011, 2012.
Mm-hmm.
And then instead of moving to data centers that we own, we proposed to move to other products like Google and Amazon at the time. So we moved part authentication, those things. And throughout these 5 years, 6 years that I was working here at the company, I learned a lot with the cloud. And then when I decide that that to go to my next endeavor, I decide to not work for someone. I decide to open my own business. And one of the things that I learned during this period here was those big consultants that we used to have, and they were all like, when you have a problem, they come to solve your problem, but they find a bunch of other problems and they solve those other problems, but not the problem that you brought him to solve. So it was
Mm.
like, let's get some company that solves problems that they're focused on the customer and move people to the cloud. That's what Webera is about. So we move people to the clouds, or operate them there
Mm-hmm.
with DevOps, and we solve problems faster and without all the big corporate or consultation. So
Mm-hmm.
we are a boutique company that try to be focused on customers.
I love that. For a simple person like me, could you put it in simple terms? What is DevOps as a service, and how does Webera excel in offering this?
So DevOps as a service is DevOps itself is like a cultural movement where we stop the idea of the past where you developer try to throw the code throughout the wall and see if
Mm-hmm.
it gets to production. So the idea with DevOps is two things. It's the developer will operate the production somehow or together, but also the operations will go to the machine of the developer, because instead of operations being the wall, now operations want the code. So DevOps about operations be enabler of new features, and developers be operating those new features. So it's an integrated workflow of managing platform or managing applications. The way that we do, we have those kind of disciplines inside where we have SRE teams and platform teams integrated working with the clients. And we are focused on bringing we say that we move the code from the laptop to the cloud. We are
Mm-hmm.
specifically focused on helping creating tools and process to expedite the developer to move code from their machines to the cloud and keep them running there
That's the
while
key part I
providing
wanted to
them,
make. I'm glad you said that without it breaking.
yeah, without breaking, and also providing them tools to monitor this code running there so they can react to when something goes wrong, because things go wrong. That's the nature of the beast, right? We are
Right.
like I was reading the other day, coding is a form of art that does something, which is not specifically the definition of the art, but it is what it is. Like we have to be creative to solve problems on one hand, but we also have to uh, have it features and all those things. So that's and the DevOps as a service, which is one of our offers, is related to is like we create this pod where we have two or more DevOps engineers with a Scrum Master and an advisor that helps the team on on a blended rate that just for the engineers. So we have a kind of a pod working with the client. And what we do, because we have this figure of the advisor, they work on multiple clients, the advisors, so they can have insights on multiple platforms, on multiple architectures, uh, while it's happening. So it's not like you would have to wait to the next conference or something being created. We are creating new technology every day, so we can expedite with new ideas, with new solutions every day, and we cross-pollinize clients with our background without, of course, sharing the data of anyone.
Wow, you're kind of alluding to my next question, which is what sets Webera apart from other companies in the DevOps space?
Exactly that. Yeah, we are a boutique. We do
I love
DevOps.
that word, by the way. I was literally thinking it when you were describing it. I'm like, you're the, and also you are at like the right time for this, like especially when you came here and to present. See, this is the time whenever, well, as you were moving to cloud, and all the problems happening, and then now you're like, I've never seen a company, I don't think, that's even more on the right time. Like the time is now for Joel.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and the idea here is that with this specific knowledge, we help mainly that we're focused on the product teams, right? Because not only the developers, we can give the product teams a predictable platform where they know that their code will get delivered in that day or at that certain time, where they have ideas or idea where their ticket or issue or story is on the pipeline, and
Mm-hmm.
they can have okay, you take this amount of time because Webera is monitoring, is able to say that this is happening on this particular period. So that's where we shine.
That's my experience with DevOps. I think you're definitely far and beyond, at least in the transparency. If if say I was the client at any point can in fact know, my experience with DevOps, even some of the best, that is not always the case. But I don't want to throw anyone under the bus. That's not necessarily my point there. But see, that does make you stand out for sure. Can you share a success story or a project that Webera has recently completed?
I can share the story, but probably not good to share the name. But one of the companies, one of the clients that we got, they had a good platform. Like from outside, you see the product that they have. They have a good platform. But when we got with them, their parts of their systems, the developers were developing inside of the production server, which
Hmm.
was like extremely agile for me. It was like and they were committing the code after the fact. It was like after it's running there, it was like, then they were like, yeah, that cannot. So in that case, we built the entire infrastructure for them, like all the pipelines. We dockerize all the application. We including they have some security requirements. We have to build the entire
Hmm.
GitLab infrastructure. So there's all internal to their network. So they have a bunch of requirements of security. And because of that, they are locking to very few people that they were doing whatever they want, basically. And
Mm.
then they were stuck in, they cannot grow because there was no process around of those things that people could share code or things like that should understand. So we had a good success where now today they have a completely cloud native infrastructure with um, pipeline that's secure, monitorable. They have all the flexibility of having these deployed inside the cloud, and they are also cloud agnostic. So if they want to move to whatever cloud they want, all runs on Kubernetes. So the developers can run the application on their laptops or in the cloud, just as one piece of the code.
Yeah, I think you've just answered my next question. It was in both. It was like, what are some of the challenges you faced in scaling Webera, and how have you overcome them? And that was a good example of that. Just given that
Yeah,
client and given what you were coming into versus where they are now.
yeah.
So, how does this is a little maybe a little jaded, but how does Webera integrate sustainability and ethical practices into the business model?
So, like to train our teams, we develop a platform called to host websites, WordPress, an example.
Okay.
And when we look at the ways to do this, we said, why don't you try to do a green kind of thing? So we create a platform that is hosted on specific data centers that use less carbon. So it's actually by helping the people to understand like what greens means, what greenwashing, all those sorts of things means, and then try to find solutions where you are. Like you can select a Google data center that uses less carbon, and that's what we did. So Green Mainframe is a hosting platform that we're using data centers that consume less carbon and also didn't change the price. It's the same.
Oh, wow.
And I like this idea that you don't have an example better than pay for carbon, which is most of the cloud does. You actually don't emit carbon. That's Google Cloud does. Also, we have other initiatives like we are part of another, or we are part no, we have part of another business called SIB, which is a game that support helps other companies to train on ESG. So
Wow.
it's a business game which people can log in, join, and then save the world in a way by learning about the concepts and all those details of ESG. So that's how we do. We in our own solutions we try to integrate and help our customers also. Like AI is now a big carbon emitter, but soon will help us better. It's a bigger problem. So we're all for that.
What future plans do you have for Rivera? Any upcoming projects or partnerships you can share? Of course, you can't get into names, especially in this area, but in a concept.
Yeah. So one of the things that we are trying to do is figure out a way that we can create models for our customers where they could support their information be used by AI, but in an internal way, in a safe way, like exploring the alternatives of like we already have successful use Llama 2 to do that with our internal information. But we wanted to explore, we have an opportunity to explore with a client this. So the idea is that basically they will have an internal bot that use their own data without sharing to anyone, running this model where they can ask and interact with their information, which is much better than just like having a website where you have to you just ask something about an application and the thing will reply with the precise information from them. So it's and like it's not like the Microsofts or anything that they could use your data. It's in your infrastructure. So it's kind of good. And also planning to do that, we will add this to as a bot to, so wherever you host a website with Green Frame, you have a bot that people externally can talk with your own site. So
Oh,
as part
wow.
of the solution. So whatever information you put there, you ask your bot, and then you have.
Building your own. Wow. This is a loaded question and geographically, arguably, I guess, racist, and yet I can't help myself from asking. But has your Brazilian background influenced your approach to business and technology?
So the
And also,
Brazilian background,
beyond being whatever that is loaded, it's also existential.
yeah. I guess. I mean, I had a lot of influence of American culture. I'm a Trekkie, so growing up in Brazil, but the way that I think that we Brazilians do culture is like we have even a word for that, like the word workaround in English cannot explain this word, but
Mm.
it's like a extreme version of workaround that we call gambiarra. You can search that,
I can barely
GABIA.
speak English, so I have no luck with Brazilian
Yeah, yeah,
Portuguese.
but it's like we are very creative with solutions. So I grew up my most of my life was like doing my my technical life, not my life, my professional life was in technology, but most on the security and support areas. So I did a lot of networking and security. I even work as I don't know what they call this today, but like a white hacker or something that we
Mm-hmm.
used to. But at a time, so you have to be creative to do those things. And I think not that other people don't have, but like because of lack of resources in Brazil, you have to be creative in a different way than Americans in other countries that
I
have much
understand
more
this,
resource.
and you're put it, and I don't want to slur the expression in what you're describing, but there is that same expression kind of where I'm from, and in the South, and we when you have lack of resources and this type of thing, we call that redneck engineering, and at the end of the day, it's really just being
Uh,
creative.
yeah, I guess you could say, yeah, you could say that, yeah. But yeah, so Brazil, yeah, they have less resources, like you mentioned, and you have to be creative sometimes with. There is even a lot of memes I can share with you later, but there's a lot of memes in Brazil because of that. So
Mm,
anyway, I think that's my biggest influence of Brazil. Like you have to be creative sometimes.
mm. Well, we'll leave it at for the podcast sake that the famous quote of necessity is the mother of invention.
That's true. That's true.
So, can you share a memorable experience or a funny story that's happened while since you donned and put on your own, to hang your own shingle and start your own business? As you've grown, a lot of my audience is startups, so they're not quite as far along as you have. So, is there something funny that you have had? I mean, I know the world's full of the doom and gloom. You were going to fail, but something funny that's happened from the time you've decided to hang your own shingle and not work for someone to now, other than being on this podcast.
Yeah, no. Uh, something funny.
You see, comedy's a hard thing though, because when you say it, it all of a
Yeah.
sudden will kill whatever you're going to describe. Because like comedy doesn't work on cue.
Yeah, I guess. Uh, yeah, I guess. Well, so there is this story about. So we have this once a month. We have because we are a remote company since we found since 2015. So we have this once a month happy hour, and we do this happy hour. It was yesterday actually, the one for this month, and we do this happy hour. And Google was like maybe 3 4 years ago. Google just launched a new feature on Google Meet, which was the ability to expand the number of windows that you can see simultaneously. And then I was explaining to the team in the morning, and then in the afternoon, like beginning of the night, people joined, and then everybody starts to, oh, we can see everybody now. It's like, oh, that's cool. Like, before we couldn't. And then for some miserable reason, one of the people that was with the camera closed it. They opened the camera, and they were in a situation that wasn't the best. Let's say
Should not have
it
been
was
on camera.
yeah, was an SFW. So, and then we're like, what the heck? Just today that I explain everyone that can see everybody. Now the guy do
Mm-hmm,
that, and
mm-hmm.
then I was like, do I take a screenshot or remove the drone? It was like my a second of I removed him from the room, and then I would talk later. I was like, dude, in the day that I explained to everybody
Right, right, right.
how to see everyone in the meeting, you get into this. I was like, that's
Well, that can kind of go into a deep wisdom. Depending, I seem like I've got a tendency here to go too deep and get existential, but we can, in that we're not logical beings. It's like we can say and say and say 2 + 2 is 4, but then there's the instinct of just saying 5, and then I guess at that moment they just, despite you telling them verbatim, they were like, "Let's turn the camera on," and at
yeah,
a compromising time. That actually happened. I think it's happened to many people. This same story of mine, the similar webcam
yeah,
coming on when it shouldn't have. It was simply the person that went on cam uh, did not have. I mean, they were professional, and again, this is probably this is the whole country or the world, but you have the top on because that's what you see in this camera. But when they stood up, it was not as closed. And by that, I mean nothing, which is even odder of a juxtaposition when you realize they're wearing a full jacket, blazers, bare naked from waist down. But when they stood up, unfortunately, I don't think I have to elaborate that any further. I think everybody got what just happened. What's a driving again, sticking to I guess I'm trying to make, despite this being DevOps and tech, I think I'm trying to make you a philosopher. And you can tell it's a force. My next question is not so hidden. What's the driving philosophy or mantra for those of the East, or the why that's led to Webera's success to date? Like, how are you still here? You didn't fail the first year that you started. I mean, that's the jaded way.
I guess is grind. Is the passion to see things running. It's so satisfying when you see an application launched. And I had many launches in these years that we have deployed new applications, and you see because we are the back end of the back end. We are not just a service now, but we are the limit of the service. We
I like that expression. I like that.
Yeah, but when you see the application running, I remember maybe 5 years ago. Yeah, I was in an office launch. I was in DC. Was the ARP? They were launching a product called Life Reimagined, and I was doing the infrastructure for them. And then they had this Dr. Phil campaign, and I saw the power of Dr. Phil that he mentioned the thing, and the site went from 100 users to 10,000 users to 20,000 users, skyrocket. So it's amazing to see the infrastructure responding and all the things that when you see a website and a campaign and all the process. And I had others after that, many others, but being part of those moments are amazing. So it's that I think this launching products and launching new features is contagious. It's you get love for that.
I just saw a quote this morning about and it was the founder of GoDaddy, and he, by the way, he's a former Marine, so I'm jaded. But he was speaking, and he was sharing a clip with somebody. He was speaking with somebody else being interviewed him, and he made the point, and where he was belaboring it. I mean, almost too much. Who might critique him though? But it's his point was, if you start any business solely for the money, he does not think he just went right out and said you're not going to be successful. And his real underlying message was, you have to start for exactly what you just described without me giving that preface to that story. It's notice what you're describing is the just passion for what the verb is that you're doing, and and the value that you're bringing to the marketplace. And as you described yourself just then, when you see the happy client, that is the utopia. And I mean, literally, I watched that probably an hour ago, unknowing that you were going to say that exact story. That I didn't expect you to answer the question saying, "Hey, I want to make a ton of money and I want to be Bill Gates," but you just took right what he was saying. Of course, I mean, I'm referencing something no one's seen, but I'm sure they can find that clip, saying that if you do it solely for the money and not to be vested for whatever it is, like if you make sharp knives, if that's what you do, then your passion to do that should be to just be see that sharp blade. And I love that you described it like it's the verb of the work that you do that drives you. And that's so holistic. Kind of make my hair stand up for a second. But let me get back to being philosophical and not sappy. Who are your ideal customers? And so if someone's listening right now and they like what you're saying, or maybe if they don't even like what you're saying, but they know that they need it, which is a more chance than not, given again the time and the era that we live in. There's a huge need, and hence why you probably even started this. You saw the need. How would they identify themselves and say, "Hey, holy crap, not only do I need this, but wow, he's literally, this company exists for me. So who is your ideal client? And
Yeah, so we say that we have exactly after the MVP or close to after MVP. When you have a product and you have some customers and you are ready to scale your team, where you have more than a developer and you start to build a team, we can help you with from that moment to build the pipeline to connect the dots between the team, right? Create that first structure to deploy and be sure that you are reliable. Up to we have this chart on our page that up to the unicorns, right? We have different services for each step, but the idea is that our ideal client, like most of our clients that are in this, we call the startups of 200 people, that are innovative companies that are always changing their products, launching new features, testing these things. That's where DevOps shines. So if you have a stable kind of non-changing.
If it can be chaos and not seem that way, then that means you've got good DevOps.
Yeah, exactly.
And I
So
love it, and it's even more critical for those that maybe not aware of DevOps. What you just described, and I'm gonna oversimplify just a tad, but technically speaking, right past MVP is when I would say is actually the inception as far as any enterprise like system structure. Thus, the need of DevOps. And really, what you just and my point here is, you come in at the most critical, but at the onset of when they need it, and you're with them through scale, so you can help that 200, the company that they've got product market fit. They went out there, they've worked the kinks, they've got a system. Now, of course, when you come in, there may be there's probably not going to be all well greased, and that's what you'll do. But you'll stay with them, if I understand you right, all the way to where they could be Walmart or Amazon, or
yeah,
you can go with them from essentially from the infrastructure standpoint, from the garage all the way to enterprise.
yeah, that's the idea.
Actually,
That's
you're
the
facilitating that. I don't want to take away from the founders or your clients and what they're doing, but without actually DevOps, and I think that's also the point, the stage that you're describing, to where they realize, holy crap, something's not right. We've got all these this is usually, at least my experience with startups, when they realize we're all experts, but why is this not working? It's like, oh, because you don't have enough team, and that's where scale is. You think scaling a company itself is hard, like the solution and the deliverable. Wait till you try to hire, like you go from a 50-person team to a 200 team to a 5. Trying
yeah.
to find good labor, I shouldn't say labor, but good people is hard enough in and of itself.
Yeah, and that one thing that most of startups don't figure out is like they don't have to have a developer thinking about how to scale the application, how to answer to
Yeah, you don't have to be the
multi-tenancy, or
enterprise on day one.
yeah, you don't have to no, you don't have to think about these solutions because, like an example, the CNCF, the Cloud Native Foundation that we are a member, uh, we as a community, developers and DevOps, we already thought about this problem because everybody faced these problems. So it's not something that you have to learn. You have to relearn every day or every new product. There is people that can help you. It's cost effective, and like you mentioned, we are not that we don't want to make money. We want to make money, but we have literally passion for that. We love to do this thing of launching a product, helping people to see their things flying. Like our focus is to make sure that your developer has a good experience because we want you to get a good experience because we want your customer to have a good experience. So in this virtual cycle, not virtuous cycle, virtual cycle of delivering good service, it's good for everyone. Like it's when we and you and everyone will make add value. That's the end goal.
That you read a thesis written on that, and already has been on deliver value, and every guru does sell it, but again, it's lost on a lot. I want to ask something funny now. I want to turn it a little bit. I'll get back to more serious in a second. If you had to describe DevOps as a function using only food items, what would they be?
Can you say that question again? Sorry.
If you had to describe, and it may be a rhetorical question, doesn't have an answer that I just made up. If you had to describe DevOps using only food items, like food, what would they be?
Only food items. What would DevOps would be? So in the kitchen, DevOps would be the guy who delivered the food to the kitchen, not the food, the guy who delivered the food to the kitchen,
Oh, wow.
the guy who builds the kitchen.
Wow.
Yeah, the guy who builds the kitchen, like put the tables on
Yeah.
the place, put the
The infrastructure that you're sitting in.
utensils, the water.
Mm-hmm.
That's DevOps. The lighting, the guys
All of
who
it. The
all of it.
infrastructure.
Yeah, the infrastructure. The guys who the air conditioning. That's DevOps. That's the guy who built the whole production. So the developers and the product owners can come, and the chef will be the product owner, the chef will be the product
Yeah.
owner, and then the cookers will be the developers can come and make the food. And we could also be the guys who build the tables and everything for the clients. Yeah, that's probably more marketing
Wow.
than us. But yeah, we are the guys who build the kitchen.
You did not fall for my trap, but you gave a beautiful answer.
I think you're breaking a little bit.
Before I'm trying to set you up for a trap there, obviously, given the question. And I was thinking in my head, my gut reaction was the seasoning. I was going to say, because I was sticking in my own confines. I was like, well, because that's what I taste. It's like you can't see the seasoning, but you know when you have plain food versus you could have rice, but if you season it, it could taste like anything you want it to. So I instantly went when I asked the question, I was like, seasoning. But you took it to a whole nother level and I love that answer. In fact, I'll never not say that answer if anyone ever asked me that question, which I doubt. But love that answer. What's the weirdest customer request you've received at Webera?
Weirder customer request. Let me think about. I guess probably should be something for security guys. They all comes with weird requests. Let me think about. Yeah, I guess mostly of the weird request comes from when when security guys starts to look at cloud infrastructure. This is at the beginning. They were like, oh, we need the configuration of this equipment. It was like, no, this is an Amazon device. It was like, it's an Amazon configuration. We don't have control of those things.
Right.
It was like, yeah, I think those are the weirdest requests that we always have. It was like, because people don't really understand the cloud. It's like, oh, I need the configuration. I need to log into this whatever device. It was like, we can't. It's not ours. Like you get your SOC report and go from there. It's like there's nothing you can do.
That's like the equivalent. Like at lawyers and startup founders, there will always be a chasm between that they won't cross because lawyers are trying to button you up because they see good ones see the risk that you're facing, even if the founder's not aware. But the founder's like, nah, I'm good. I'll just go with it. See, and the lawyer is sitting there, no, you can't do it. There's just a chasm. I can see that too because at the end of the day, you're not in control of Amazon's equipment. Like to you it's black and white, and to them it's like, no, we got to stop right now.
Yeah, no, it's like yeah, and then yeah, I guess on the more weird part there was like, oh, yeah, I think there was a request from a customer that he wants simulate a problem with their data in production, and we said no. It was like, why not? We need to get data from production simulators, like because it's a HIPAA compliant data. You can't do that. And then there was like, oh, but I cannot simulate all this volume. It's like, yeah, you have to. And then we had to go, in this case, against our not the customer, because when got to the founder, we explained, and then he don't. Yeah, you're right. You cannot do that. But it was a really spotty situation where we had to go to against our closest contract manager to say no, because we knew that this was a risk on the HIPAA thing, right? You cannot expose data from,
and you can't.
Yeah, so it's complex.
I'm going to ask one personal, and then I'm going to flip to some controversial questions, and I'm giving that tee up in advance, but trying to say that this is kind of the last out question. Outside of work, tell us who Joel is. What's some of your hobbies and interests? Of course, that's a give me question, but I'm going to ask some controversial ones next.
So
other than taking rednecks to have the best food they've ever had, what do you do for fun?
So I like reading, all those basic stuff that humans do. Reading. I have 2 kids, so I like to play with them when I can. I'm working lots those days, so that's a good time. I like to put my hands on technical stuff when I'm off. Like when I'm not working, I like to play with the guys, with the team. I always involved with work those days. Then nothing that's not work. Believe it or
Well,
not.
they say that if you do what you love, it won't be work, and it sounds like you're describing that very experience, because it's like even when you're off work, you're still doing it because, well, that's what you like to do.
Yeah, it's awesome. It was like when I get off, like the attributions that I do, was like, oh, why don't I do that thing that is just, I don't know, like yesterday I was playing with these stability AI LLMs. I have one here in my back running eGPU, and I was doing with these images, like, oh, let me do with the Webera logo, and then I can do something. I was like, and that'll be fun. I can make a video of that. So it's fun. It's fun.
You're the engineer meets the digital. What's the word? Digital creator. I think you're like, and you're at that crossroad.
Yeah, it's so awesome. Like these models are amazing, and you can do all your local machine. I mean, I'm not a really gamer, but I never saw my GPU like 100% all the memory and still taking minutes. I was like, oh boy, this thing is heavy, as they say.
As a software advocate myself, or enthusiast myself, I have always railed against hardware and the hardware people, because I'm always arguing against them that I'm waiting on you. It's like, if you go back and look, it's like just taking gaming, and I wasn't a gamer either, but it's like these graphics aren't real. It's like, but hardware is always seemingly behind. It's like you got this cord, that cord, this process. It's the software is already in next year. It's like,
Yeah.
I'm more of a software person myself and playing around with what it's capable of. But as to your point now, when you're looking at some of these algorithms and how it takes a lot of processing power. Let's just say your calculator won't do that. It won't solve that equation.
No, we're
You're going
not.
to need,
Definitely not.
yeah. And you go look at, and rightly so, you go look at the hardware, despite as much as I may critique, that price tag will give you a respect. I know this machine that one of our clients is working. I mean, it just looked like a regular modem, right, to an average person. It just looked like, and that was a $500,000 machine because of what it could process. It wasn't quantum or anything, but it had some muscle under the hood. It just looked like a broke down car on the outside, but I wouldn't race it if I put it in those terms. So let's get into some hot water questions, and maybe they're not, and maybe because you're in the field and you'll walk right through them, and I guess that's what the audience would want. But to me, they seem controversial. DevOps is often criticized for contributing to burnout culture. What's your take on this?
Uh, I guess in a way, uh, like if you don't create a flow that people is constantly working on, uh, like there are some things that when you start to do DevOps, you kind of have to stop fight against. Like an example, testing software. It's important to DevOps that you have a way to automate tests, because if you don't automate tests, it will create a queue problem. An
Mm-hmm.
example, we had a customer that, okay, we have a challenge for you, Joel. We wanted to do 2 deployments a week. Cool. Yeah, we can do it. We can help with that. We have the only thing that we have a 2 weeks testing schedule. It was like, how can you do 2 weeks testing schedule with 1 week deployment? I found a way that is like you have 2 lanes of deployment. Like you have one testing version on one lane, another testing version on another lane. You deploy, and then in alternate
So
weeks.
you were Brazilian and you redneck engineered and found a way.
Yeah, but it's like it would be better if you could automate the tests so they can fit in one day, so you can
Right,
deploy every week,
right.
and then you could actually deploy every day if you want. But so if you have those things, if you wanted to do those things right, DevOps will help you. If not, you create this unnecessary friction between operations, not operation, between the process. Like because DevOps is not reinventing the wheel either. It's like we wanted to deploy every day during the day without impacting the customer. That's what you want to do, and give the opportunity to the company to do that. Is what you want. Oh no, because my customer is not 24/7. If you have a website open, I bet that if you have more than 100 customers, someone will log in midnight, and
Me, me.
and will your site will be down because you're doing some change, and they'll say, "Oh, well, your site was down last night." It was like, "Yeah, I'm sorry, I was doing a change."
That's me. You're just that would be me. I would land on my favorite site, whatever it is, and I would just happen to do it at an off hour time when they just happen to be down, and all my friends and family and loved ones will hear me cuss for the next 6 months.
Yeah. So, yeah, that's the problem. So, like, it's not maybe we're the messenger of the problem, but it's not because we wanna. It's because like we see the problems. We see the guys open the website at midnight, and we say we can deploy midnight because, or we have to deploy in a way that doesn't bother the guy midnight because the midnight guy will be there.
I appreciate that consideration. How do you handle the ethical dilemmas that come with data management and security?
So we try to tell the teams, or to guide the teams, uh, to like the most important thing on the data thing is try not to access it, or to not have access to it, or to not like in a way take it out of the infrastructure. Like an example, we deploy, but I'm talking more like about or the solution case, right? So
Hmm, hmm.
when we design a solution, try to design in a way that you don't need to have access to the data to solve a problem. An example, make sure that the developers don't log personal data, or ask them or guide them to not do that. Implement filters to not do that, or make sure that all the infrastructures is written as a code, so you don't have to actually access the infrastructure to change something. You just change the code, and then the code goes there and change the infrastructure. So build the way that DevOps don't have to access the data to actually do their work. So it's a
Mm-hmm.
better
You
way
can
to.
alter the data without necessarily controlling the data. You can some is in a completely unrelated field, and I'm probably going to confuse the audience now, but it's like the CRISPR, the one of the greatest leaps here. But actually, all it's doing is it goes into the DNA and it like cuts the little. I mean, it's not monitoring your whole DNA strip, but it cuts the part that it doesn't want and puts a fake one in. But that's most innovative, well, not fake, but I shouldn't say fake. There's my redneck talking. But at the end of the day, it's not altering your whole DNA. It's going in and that one little, so I'm messing with all the rest of it. It's just that one little piece it takes out and puts another one in off the shelf, so to speak.
Yeah, it's kind of this. So
Hands off,
an
hands
example.
on. You're describing both
Yeah.
sides. It's like you're in it, but you're not responsible or taking down or privy. It's like you know and don't know kind of thing.
Yeah, and also the idea of having from my experience on big companies, like you're trying to have this separation of duties. So where you have people, whatever people have right to data, they don't have right to control the access. So you have this like when you need to do something that goes close to the limit, think about that you have. And the way that we have this inside of the company, we have this set of guidelines. So we try to, like, we have a bunch of documents inside, and one of those things is guidelines, just kind of above checklists and below policies. It's like in the middle, where you have these little lines of how can I say, bullet points with recommendations to do whatever you do a solution. Like an example, try to not have SPOFs, like single points of failures, things like that. That just to remind the engineers, they know how to do, but it's too many things to do. So some guidelines to the team where they can try to understand that.
I like that. It's a very, being in the DC area. It's compartmentalization is what doesn't sink, is how the ship doesn't sink. It's like no, you know what, or I'll put it in military terms. You know, you're on a need to know basis, and I don't mean that in the way it sounds, but it's like you have your lane, and this is your job, and your team collectively impacts the whole job. But no one person can do any one thing. They can do what they're supposed to do.
Yeah, that's kind of, yeah, but in the, it's like on the kitchen thing, we deliver the box of the food, but don't touch the food.
I love that. I love your analogy. That's perfect. Yeah, it's like I'll never get that out. Now, every time I think of DevOps, I'm going to think of somebody built this restaurant, somebody put in the air conditioning. I'm like, wow. But actually, the accuracy of that analogy is profound. I think you hit that dead on the head, whether you're trying to or not. I know that you're going to have to go in a minute. I have a lot of funny questions I'll skip. And what I will get into, just for the sake of so the audience can get a little sizzle, in case I haven't rattled anyone yet. Of course, I'm using you as, hopefully I can rattle someone. And so far you're handling it. You're hitting home runs with everything. In your blog article, I, by the way, at midnight, one of the sites I may be on is your personal blog. Because despite your expertise in DevOps, your depth and breadth of subject matter expertise is, well, still impressive. In fact, I'm like, wow, I would argue, I know this is not true, but you come across as a person that's got 14 PhDs, because there's no other way that you could know all the different subjects. And yet here I'm reading, and it's like reading a thesis on 8 different topics. And it's like, wow, this man is impressive. All right, I'll stop singing your praises there and get off the soapbox. But you mentioned in one of your articles and what I really want to do is I'll cut the question short, and I'm going to ask you about the most 4 previous articles, and you just kind of tell the audience what you were describing. And I hope the audience, what I'm really trying to do here, despite the verbose, is to get them to go to the blog, because I think they're going to see another side of you that they may not get out of if you think of a person only in DevOps building kitchens. Autocracies and democracies, you delve into some heavy topics, and you make some very astute analysis and comparisons. And again, to anybody listening, please go see this blog. And what inspired you to write this? And again, just tell us what you're writing. And I'm going to do the same for the next 3 articles. The next one is my favorite, God and Spinoza.
So my idea with that thing is, like, I was playing with AI with this article, okay, and I was, but like my thought was like, okay, I want to to leave the world a better place, right? That everybody wants that, right? So I was thinking about so because autocracies, and mainly when you see like China and all those countries, they have
Mhm, mhm, mhm.
this success phase where people believe in the head of that nation or something, and they are around of that thought, and they end up, oh, we're growing. So they have this beginning very successful, right? W-
You could contribute
Which,
that to the collective, but it's even if
y-
they're believing and not right, it's the fact that the collective buys in.
yeah, but democracy is much more messy.
Oh,
But
wait.
the, the idea that if you have everyone thinking like that leader, everyone thinking about the collective benefit,
Mhm.
is much more powerful than believing that one person will
Well, you could
have
argue that that's like
enough.
that's the way, and I love the way you articulated on the article and now. That is the little definition of centralized in the sense that you're all, and I'm gonna slur it, but you're the same. Whereas, and I love the contrast you're making here is the democracy. It's essentially, arguably saying, if you have an opinion, come and throw it into the pot, and well, that's chaos because if you got 10 people, there'll be 12 ideas.
Yeah, but also there is the benefit of having this everybody have, and we are conscious beings, right? So
Mhm.
we love to have expression. Like, thank you for letting me have my expression here on your podcast,
Right,
and
right, right.
and that is amazing. Like, that's human, like consciousness at its best, right?
You could say the
So
podcast is one consciousness talking to the other one. I mean, at the end of the day, yeah.
exactly. So it's that's what fascinated me, because I was reading something, of course, on Twitter somewhere, where someone was praising one autocracy of those, because of, it was like, no, guy, you don't understand. It was like, you have to believe in people that they will do that. Freedom is important, that you have the ability to speak your mind is important, that you have it's not by having some crazy guy on the top that will say to you that he is protecting you. It's not as good as everyone else doing the same thing,
You
protecting
could
you.
you could argue if you're going to make a really a case exhibit A for what you're describing, a good contrast, unfortunately, would be America to North Korea, and that there's well they're closed off. It's not the people's fault per se, but it's the yes we're crazy and we're over here arguing, and if you turn the TV on, we look like we hate each other. But I did an analysis about 2 years ago. It kind of like a wise moment happened, and I'm standing in Walmart. There's of course America. We always sound like we're mad, and there are bad things, and I'm not taking away from that. Whereas in North Korea, you go there's the exact opposite. They'll probably smile because that's what that's the narrative. However, I stood in Walmart, because I shop high class, and so and while I was standing there, and this is when we were social distancing, so I couldn't go down the aisle. So I was standing right outside the garden center, and my wife had went in to get the lights. So I was just standing right at where they converted the garden center over to get lights, Christmas lights. I was standing right there at the entrance, where it was open in space. I didn't want to get into the garden center because it was too tight, social distancing at the time. And I noticed while I was standing there, while she took like what felt like 14 years to go down this one aisle to get Christmas lights, I was standing at that entrance and I saw black, brown, green, fat. I saw people that sounded, everybody's having their own little discussions, and some people sound like they were about to beat each other. The other people sound like they were about to, make out on the aisle. Some people sounded like they were wealthy, and that's why they were at Walmart, because they didn't want to spend. And other people looked like Walmart, like me. It was their highest. And it hit me right there. Holy crap! Everybody is represented, and I'm standing in one store at one finite location point in time. But wow, this is chaotic if you just sit back and observe. And I mean, I wish you could get the literal visual that I mean, I saw everything. And
Yeah.
DC is a very diverse. I mean, I saw everybody that's people worse accents than us, and people mad, happy, sad, fat, black, white, pink, yellow, bolts. I mean, and then that's when it hit me. Wait, hold on. America's not divided. Like, yes, we have controversial and opposite opinions. Yes, but that's the point. Like, that's the success. And I think the real exhibit is: did anybody shoot anybody in Walmart? Were there actually any fights? No. And It's an outlier if that did happen, but it was like in that moment, it was chaotic. And yet it was perfect peaceful. Like it was just another day at Walmart. And the fact that that could happen, it's not America's divided. We would that's it. That's America flexing.
Yeah, actually, I think America looks, or we look most divided when we are close to 50%.
I love that.
Because it's like, if we have different opinions, we're not divided. We're just different opinions.
You really get into some deep philosophy there. It's like you are me, I'm you. It's like, and if you pull out a second, you start to see the opposite that you may have easily assumed at the beginning, that two people with two contrasting opinions means they're different. No, and actually what happens is the further, and I'm going to speak literal, that the left gets from the right. So you know what happens? The middle gets bigger. So what I would argue now, after this little impromptu test at Walmart, is instead of the left and the right arguing for them to come together, I want the left to turn 180 degrees and walk. And I want the right to turn the opposite and walk. Now, if you notice, by the way, since we are on a globe, what will happen is left becomes right and right becomes left, and they'll end up meeting each. And that's the point. It's like, yes, they look like their backs are at each other and they're getting further away, but you notice the middle is getting bigger. I'll stop there because I do want to talk about this next one, and then I'll conclude. I've got so many more. If you don't mind, I would like to have you come back because I've got a lot more, and I think there's a lot more that you could offer our audience, and I think you're probably going to intrigue them, and I think it'd be a treat if you'd be willing to come back. But I do want to touch, because it's very rarely, speaking of all this philosophy, we always, when you get into philosophy for whatever reason, even though I was an engineer myself and math, but, I flirted with philosophy just as an interest, and come find out it's all the same. It's like whole logic is logic. It's like the West, and when I first got in and I was representative of this, we get enamored with Descartes or maybe a Socrates. That's where you first and you shaped your whole life, right? Well, and then you reverse engineering that when you get into higher philosophy. Like, wait, the whole West is enamored with Descartes, and this I think, therefore I am, which I would argue in the modern age is false, because you can go to Google. Tell me right now, and this, I'm not asking you, an original thought that you have. Go to Google. Here's the acid test. Go to Google, whatever you think, go and watch. It'll already predict. My point is we don't have an original thought. You know how hard that actually, like, you could say that's the evolution of where we're at. And it's like, that actually is a hard thing to find. I mean, everything you say is probably, go to Google and just see if it passed that simple test. They'll probably already fit. Why? Because it's already been asked. Now, that's my point. So it goes back kind of the fallacy and that logic of, I think, therefore I am, though it was a little talking more metaphysical. But that's when I discovered in this, holy crap, Descartes isn't the be all end all that I assumed him to be. And I'm not taking away from him, still brilliant, still got contribution. That's when I found Spinoza, and I have been hooked ever since. And it's so rare that I find someone that because, they were actually contemporary. They were not of the same thought. You could say that it was like a Edison and Nikola Tesla situation. They were of the same time, but they were not of the same direction. They were left and right. And it's just, because we do speak of Descartes, and nobody ever, and when you get into his philosophy, you're like, holy crap, he's saying what I already thought. He just articulated it. It comes down to the whole, metaphysical mind, body, connected, not connected. And I love that. And when I coming from the South, a lot of people are very religious, and, in a Southern Baptist way, so they thump the Bible all the time. And I always like to go back and I say something to them. And a lot of times I think it's lost on them, but I say, my God is Spinoza's God, which, I'm quoting Einstein there. See, if you ask me about religion, I would say, my God is Spinoza's. When and your article, I think I may have had a slight orgasm when I'm reading. I'm like, not only did he know Spinoza, you're sitting there quoting the exact you got to the essence.
Yeah. I quoted the exact episode there now. Yeah. And about the Spinoza, it's more like an example. We have so many religions, and they have so many dogmas, and
right. They all do. Right, all comes. The minute you have a belief, you're going to have an implied dogma on it. Doesn't matter what it doesn't have to be religion.
Yeah, you have belief, exactly. It's all full of dogmas and things that you have to do and you have to not do, and you put you against others and things like that.
You know,
And
it's still
then
the saved versus the damned. So it's like it still
yeah,
divides.
yeah. So it's like when you look at this, it's like, okay, he made this, whatever did
His
this.
argument, if I could simplify, and you could correct me on the next episode, but I would go as far as say if anyone human has came close to actually articulating whatever it is to mean divine, I think Spinoza came. He's gotten the closest to it, because if you try to argue the logic, you're like, wow, this is actually pretty sound.
Yeah,
You know, he describes it in such a way. Again, it's a separation of mind and body. But I'll stop there. I know you have to go. We've already kept you, so I'll read the end and then we'll go.
yeah,
It's
cool.
been an incredible conversation, and a huge thank you to you, Joel, for taking the time to share your insights and experiences, and of course the amazing work that Webera is doing in the DevOps as a service space. And for all the listeners out there, if you want to learn more about Joel and Webera, you can check out their website at webera.com. You can also follow Joel on Twitter at Joel Zamboni, and check out his blog, which we are referencing now. And I've got about 18 more questions on it at joelzamboni.com. Don't forget to tune in to Joel's own podcast on Spotify. The link will be in the show notes. If you've enjoyed today's episode, please make sure to subscribe, rate, leave a review. Tell me I talked too long, whatever the comments may be. I just like to get feedback. It really helps out a lot. Thanks for today's episode of the Full-Time Hustle Podcast. Until next time, keep hustling.
Thank you.